Alrighty, guys, let's talk about the finale, the season finale to season 2 of The Last of Us. This is going to be a full spoiler discussion, so if you have not seen any episodes, really, of season 2 of The Last of Us, because for those of you who don't know, we have now officially wrapped up The Last of Us, and maybe it wasn't obvious because, well, we'll talk about this, but I think season 2 really, it didn't really finish out the season, narratively speaking, so you'd be forgiven if you didn't realize that this was the finale of The Last of Us Season 2. We'll talk about that. But this is going to be a full spoiler discussion, so if you have not seen any of the episodes of The Last of Us Season 2, no worries, just make sure to save this segment, save the podcast, save the video for later, whatever platform you're watching, and then come back once you have. Or if you don't care about spoilers, or if you have seen the episode, then welcome. Let's dive right on in. I, as always, will give some context for how I've been feeling throughout the season. And for those of you who are asking why I do this every episode, for those of you who are saying, I've heard this before, it's a broken record, I like to treat every single segment as if, and this happens, new viewers come in, and they can come in at any point, any video, any segment, any podcast episode. And so I want to make sure that everybody is fully on board. So apologies if this is all familiar to you, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while now. But anyways, giving some context, I'm a big fan of The Last of Us Season 1. I thought the drama, the character work, and of course, just the action, the visuals, the stakes, but really the character work that was done in Season 1 was phenomenal. And so Season 2, again, not knowing almost anything about the games, knowing that there was something controversial that happened, and I assumed it was a character's death. I did not expect it to happen in episode 2 of Season 2, and actually, from what I've heard, even people who had played the games didn't even think it was going to happen that early. But, episode 1, I thought, great reintroduction into the show, setting some stakes. There's some tension between Joel and Ellie that gets fleshed out later on in the season. And then episode 2 was obviously the big bomb, the nuclear explosion of Joel getting killed. And then episode 3, I thought, okay, we're getting back into it. We just want to settle into our grief a little bit and try to move on with Ellie and Dina. But episode 4 was when I started to get a little bit worried. Episode 4, I was like, we're past halfway in this season and we haven't gotten anywhere. What's going on? And then episode 5, while yes, it was a good return to form in terms of what I expected from an episode of The Last of Us, still was not really pushing us that far forward into the story, which again worried me. And episode 6 was completely a flashback episode, a beautiful flashback episode. I loved the episode in isolation, but in terms of the overall story, it had me worried. And so entering the finale, I was very not worried. I mean, worried is maybe too strong of a word, but I was concerned that this finale, there was just no plausible way for this finale to tie up narratively, the threads that would have been going on in season 2. As in, there was no way for me to come out of season 2, episode 7 saying, oh, wow, okay, everything makes sense, and I feel super satisfied by this season. Because again, even though I've liked a lot of what I've seen, it just didn't feel like it was possible. Lo and behold, episode 7 comes out, and I think I was right, at least for me. I'm nowhere near satisfied with the narrative that was told in season 2. Again, it's not to say that the parts that make up this season weren't good. Almost everything in this season that was done was really good. It's just that it didn't come together in a way that told a cohesive story. And I'm frustrated because I feel like I've been seeing this. I said this in my immediate reaction. I've been seeing this too much recently, where shows are like, oh, we know we have next season, so we're just not going to resolve the brunt of the story. I mean, this whole season after Joel's death was supposed to be about Abby versus Ellie. And this was a 5-minute scene in season 2, episode 7. I know people, I know, there's more to the game. I know there's more to the story. I get it. I totally get that. But you have to take creative liberties, I think. You have to try to wrap up the story that you're telling in this season in particular. If you're going to set out to set expectations and just not have Abby, come out in any of the episodes until the last 5 minutes of this season. Basically she comes in episode 1 for a little bit, tiny bit, and then episode 2, she's the main character, or not the main, she's one of the main characters, and then she just doesn't appear until the last 5 minutes. That's frustrating. And I'm not just talking about Abby, by the way. For those of you who might be saying, well, you're just frustrated, you didn't get to see the resolution between Abby and Ellie. Let me just talk about all the things that didn't get really resolved here. And again, just to recap what I talked about last week as well in terms of format for what we're doing here. I liked what I did last episode, where we didn't do the whole play-by-play, just kind of did my thoughts and reference my notes here and there. And I think we're going to do that from now on for these spoiler discussions. But anyways, let me just talk about some other things that didn't get resolved. What is this war between WLF and these scars? That hardly got fleshed out. We know what is happening, like literally what is happening, that they're fighting each other and there's some prophet group and they worship some prophet and the WLF is mad at them. We know nothing about what is going on with this conflict. And I'm saying this again as somebody who, you have to understand, I haven't played the game, so you might understand everything that's going on, but try, if you have played the games, try to put yourself in the shoes of somebody like myself who has not played the games at all and doesn't know anything. I have no idea what's going on with this conflict between WLF and the Scars, other than they're fighting. And there's a religious figure. Okay, that's great. I don't know what else there is to say about that. You introduce Isaac as a character. He's in there for maybe 20 minutes of screen time. Dina's pregnant, and that, that is going to get discussed next episode, or next season, I guess, because Jesse is dead, and that's terrifying. That was horrific. Also, what was it, and this is just my own, this has nothing to do with anything. This is just my own personal thing. What was it with all the medical stuff in this episode of trying to cut things out and clean up wounds? I hate that stuff. Like, a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, for some reason, is totally fine for me. But as soon as you start getting into the medical, like, oh, we need to bandage this and cut this open, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just all over this episode. Anyways, that was a whole aside. But yeah, so we have all of that stuff going on there. And it's just, like, what was Abby up to? So I guess the entire season 3 is going to be between day 1 of Seattle, and which was teased at the end of this season, and then day 3, which is when I guess they meet again, which I did clock that. Actually, I was kind of proud of myself, because when that day 3 title card popped up during the last episode, I was like, that's weird. What does that mean? Like, why are we referencing day 3? And then lo and behold, it was a call, not a call for foreshadowing, that you're going to set up this timeline here, where at the end of the episode, I'm presuming it flashes back a couple days to what Abby was doing a couple days ago. So I'm sure that's going to be basically what season 3 is about. We've heard reports and rumors that, I think Catherine O'Hara said this, where season 3 is really going to be Abby's story. Great, that's fine and all. But again, I don't know. And then also ending on the cliffhanger of Ellie getting shot, allegedly, although we don't see it happen. So if we don't see it happen, I'm going to assume it doesn't happen. You can let me know in the comments down below. I think it's safe to say in this moment that Ellie's not dead, because I think this would have been, I don't know, it would have been way more obvious that she would have been dead if that happened. So I know that this show is not afraid to kill characters off, but I think that they probably wanted to sideline her for a little bit while they focus on Abby next season. So that is what it is. But yeah, I feel like this season, kind of zooming out a little bit, because we'll talk about this episode, just some more things about this episode briefly before we get to that. A lot of medical stuff here, and then I think that there's some really good conflicts being set up with Ellie, where you're frustrated at her because she's making the wrong choice, I think, of going after Abby at the expense of someone like Tommy. But that her rage is starting to consume her. And she wants to do the right thing, but she's so conflicted by her anger and her rage, and so you understand that. But she ends up making some really bad choices, and she kills two of Abby's friends, and that leads to the part at the end as well. And you get more of a conversation between Jesse and Ellie as well, about Jesse being a father, but that is going to be just a tragedy moving forward, because now I hope Dina's okay at the end of the season. I don't think I saw her at the end of the episode, but yeah, the episode itself, I thought it was shot beautifully. I loved the scene where Ellie was on the speedboat heading across the coast of Seattle, and I thought that was shot so beautifully in the rain and the thunderstorm. It's great. And really, taking a step back and zooming out, which is what I wanted to do at the end of this spoiler discussion here, I think what's frustrating to me about this season, like I said in my immediate reaction, is you can take these 7 episodes, and there is a world in which these 7 episodes are 7 episodes of one of the best seasons of television ever, and it's like a 12-episode season of The Last of Us, and these 7 episodes are kind of, plopped in there, and there's just more to flesh out this story. I'm not saying, by the way, for the record, that they should have just made The Last of Us Part 2, the game, 1 season. I'm not saying that, because I fully am on board with the idea of, if you think the story is big enough and rich enough to split it, that's fine. But that doesn't mean literally split it, like just cut it off, right? And I'm not saying that's what they did here. I know that they intentionally cut it off at a certain point because they felt like that was a narrative breaking point. That's fine. But you have to justify that by closing up whatever loop this story was trying to tell. And this story it's not a closed loop, it's an open loop in my opinion. And it's incredibly frustrating, and not because, not in small part because we have to wait probably 1 or 2 years now until the next season of The Last of Us. And I don't think that's insignificant, because I mean, if this next season was coming out in 3 weeks, okay, maybe you kind of bite your tongue. But I mean, now what? You waited another 2 years for this, and it's crazy. So I mean, again, I really liked a lot of stuff in this season. This is an instance where, and I feel like I rarely say this with movies and TV shows. You usually say something like the sum is greater than the parts that make it up, right? But in this case, I think the parts are vastly superior than the sum, and the sum is 7 episodes just kind of not eclectically. I don't want to say that either, because there was very clearly, thought put behind what led to one, another thing, and the emotional stakes behind each character. I'm not saying that it's just random episodes. I just think that they got to the end and they were like, hey, we can kind of move on, with this next part of the story in season 3. And that's it. So we'll just have a little confrontation at the end, and then Ellie gets shot or whatever the implication was there. And then we'll move on. So I'm frustrated by that. Again, I'm not saying that The Last of Us Season 2 is a bad season of television. Not at all. I really enjoyed a vast majority of what I watched this season. And by enjoyed, I mean, was traumatized by a good portion of it. But in a good way, if that even makes sense at all. I'm just frustrated. I know I've said that at least 20 times in this segment, but it's really just, I wish I could have come out of this season with the same feeling that I had after I watched season 1, where I went, wow. I mean, devastating at the end, right? With Joel's lie to Ellie, but still just an amazing season of television. I wish I could have come out saying that, and as it is, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I wish it was better. I wish the season was better, and that's odd because some of the episodes themselves are probably Emmy worthy. I hope Pedro Pascal gets an Emmy for this, because my gosh, his performance in this. So that's really what the most frustrating thing is about this whole thing is. But guys, what did you think now that we have this in the rear view mirror? What did you guys think of season 2 of The Last of Us and the finale, episode 7 of The Last of Us? Let me know in the comments down below. Did you enjoy the season more than season 1, or did you enjoy it less? And are you looking forward to a potential season 3? Not a potential, probably a season 3. It's almost definitely going to happen. Let me know in the comments down below.